This news is funded by viewers like you. Please support our work at democracynow.org/give. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israel's ordered 100,000 Palestinians living in eastern Rafah to evacuate ahead of an Israeli offensive on the southern Gaza city, where more than 1.4 million displaced Palestinians have sought refuge. The UN aid agency, UNRWA, warned Israel's attack on Rafah would have devastating consequences and lead to more civilian suffering and deaths. Overnight, Israeli bombardments killed at least 26 people in Rafah, including 11 children.
We fled death and destruction, and we came to Rafah only to find destruction here. Do they want to kill us here? We came seeking safety in Rafah. Where do they want to send us? Where are we to go? The situation is so difficult. We're unable to describe the destruction that we are living in here. Someone feel for us and the tragedy we are living through.
The order to evacuate Rafah came a day after Hamas fighters fired rockets at the Karem Abu Salem crossing, killing 4 Israeli soldiers. This all comes as ceasefire talks appear to have stalled. On the humanitarian front, Cindy McCain, the widow of Senator John McCain, now the head of the World Food Program, told NBC that northern Gaza is in full-blown famine.
What I can explain to you is that there is famine, full-blown famine in the north, and it's moving its way south.
We'll speak to a doctor who just left Gaza about the full-blown famine. He's now in Amman. Protests continue on college campuses across the United States as students call on schools to divest from Israel. At the University of Michigan, students holding Palestinian flags briefly disrupted graduation ceremony Saturday as a plane flew overhead holding a banner that read, "Divest from Israel now, free Palestine." At Indiana University in Bloomington, some students walked out of Saturday's commencement and booed the school's president. Planes also circled above that ceremony carrying a banner with a Palestinian flag and the words, "Let Gaza live." At the University of Virginia in Charlottesville, police arrested 25 protesters who'd set up a Gaza solidarity encampment. In Chicago, 68 people were arrested in an encampment outside the Art Institute of Chicago. New York police made 56 arrests early Friday after raiding student encampments at the New School and NYU. Riot police have also cleared a student encampment at USC, the University of Southern California. According to the Associated Press, police have now arrested more than 2,500 students at pro-Palestine protests. That includes 133 arrests on Thursday at SUNY New Paltz, that's State University of New York, when police violently raided a student encampment. At the University of Mississippi, officials have opened a probe after video went viral showing a group of white counter-protesters harassing a black protester. One white student was seen imitating a monkey as he mocked her while others screamed, "Lock her up." Meanwhile, school officials at Evergreen State College in Olympia, Washington, have reached an agreement with student protesters and have vowed to work toward divesting from, quote, companies that profit from gross human rights violations and/or the occupation of Palestinian territories, unquote. Evergreen College is the alma mater of Rachel Corrie, the American peace activist killed by an Israeli military bulldozer in Gaza in 2003. In Gaza, Palestinians have voiced support for the student protests.
My message for the American students is that we are extremely proud, and their protests and their solidarity with Palestine and with Gaza gave us a glimpse of hope, and they didn't leave us left alone. They didn't leave us feeling helpless.
In Britain, solidarity encampments have also been set up on the same day at Cambridge and Oxford. In other education news, Columbia University in New York is now under a federal investigation for anti-Palestinian discrimination. The Department of Education opened the probe after the group Palestine Legal accused the school of, quote, extreme anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, and Islamophobic harassment, unquote. Israeli authorities have taken Al Jazeera off the air inside Israel. On Sunday, police officers raided the network's Jerusalem bureau, seized broadcasting equipment. Israel's Foreign Press Association called it a, quote, dark day for democracy. The move came just 2 days after World Press Freedom Day. Over the past 8 months, Al Jazeera has been one of the only international outlets with reporters on the ground inside Gaza. We'll have more on that story, speaking with the managing editor of Al Jazeera in Doha after headlines. Tens of thousands of Israelis took to the streets Saturday in nationwide rallies calling for a deal to free the hostages and to hold early elections in Israel. Danny Elgart, whose brother is being held in Gaza, addressed the protest in Tel Aviv.
Bibi, we call you to reach a ceasefire deal which secures the release of all hostages. Ceasefire that secures the release of hostages. The war actually didn't end, Bibi, but know that the war ended. You can't lie to us. You are taking more time so you and Ben-Gvir can stay in power. You are taking more time so you will stay in power. You don't care about the 133 or 132 hostages. An operation in Rafah will cause the death of the hostages. You don't have a mandate to kill 132 citizens of Israel.
In Panama, Jose Raul Molino, a last-minute standing candidate, was declared the winner of Sunday's presidential election. Molino, Panama's former public security minister, was originally a vice presidential candidate and was only officially announced as a presidential candidate 2 days before voting after his running mate, the former President Ricardo Martinelli, was disqualified due to a money laundering conviction. Martinelli, whose presidency ended a decade ago, has been taking refuge in the Nicaraguan embassy since February due to his legal issues. He remains popular and has vowed to revive Panama's economy, take on drug cartels, and crack down on migration through Panama, including shutting down the treacherous Darien Gap. In southern Brazil, at least 78 people have died from major flooding after days of torrential downpours. Over 100 are still missing and tens of thousands have been displaced in the state of Rio Grande do Sul, where a hydroelectric dam collapsed and a lake broke its bank. This is a flood survivor who works at a local health center.
Everything's lost. There's nothing complete. I've been working here in this health unit for 23 years.
Here in the U.S., much of the Houston area remains submerged after a week of heavy rains. One 5-year-old child was killed when the vehicle he was riding in was swept away by fast-moving water. In other news from Texas, Democratic Congressmember Henry Cuellar and his wife were indicted on federal bribery and conspiracy charges. They're accused of accepting nearly $600,000 in bribes from an Azerbaijani oil and gas company and a bank in Mexico. Donald Trump's criminal hush money trial is entering its third week of testimony. On Friday, Trump's former top aide, Hope Hicks, described efforts to do damage control in the weeks prior to the 2016 election following the release of the infamous Access Hollywood tape where Trump openly bragged about assaulting women. On Thursday, prosecutors played jurors a secret audio tape of Trump and his then-fixer, Michael Cohen, discussing a plan to pay off former Playboy model Karen McDougal to keep her silent about her affair with Trump. Police in Canada have arrested 3 Indian men suspected of assassinating the Canadian Sikh leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar outside a Sikh temple in British Columbia last year. Nijjar was a prominent leader in a movement to form an independent Sikh homeland in India. Last week, The Washington Post revealed senior members of India's spy agency were directly involved in a foiled plot to kill a prominent Sikh activist who lives here in New York City. And the acclaimed British Palestinian surgeon, Ghassan Abu Sita, was denied entry to France on Saturday, despite an invitation to speak to members of the French Senate about his time volunteering with Doctors Without Borders in Gaza. This comes weeks after Germany barred Abu Sita from attending a Palestinian conference in Berlin. Germany's reportedly placed a 1-year ban on Abu Sita from entering any country in Europe's border-free zone. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Democracy Now! Is funded by viewers like you. Please give today at democracynow.org/give.